JJ, I'm coming to you first because French Football Federation seems to be getting attacked a little bit right now. Give us the latest. Maybe let people know out there what's actually going on between the Zidane news, obviously coming from the French football president, but also the response from Kylian Mbappe and this morning, Real Madrid.
I mean, how long do we have, guys? Because I know you guys accuse me of going on massive rants and diatribes when it comes to clubs like Lens, but the French Football Federation is a completely different kettle of fish. So, okay, you've got Noel Le Graet, the French Football Federation president, under contract until 2024, coming out on Saturday with Didier Deschamps, taking everyone by surprise, extending Deschamps' contract until 2026. That's not a 2+2 deal. Deschamps said clearly in that press conference, it's a 4-year deal. So if things don't go right for France at Euro 2024, there will have to be a sacking in order for France to part ways with him. So the assumption at the moment is that France will continue for the next 4 years under Didier Deschamps. In 2024, Noel Le Graet will be replaced as French Football Federation president. We know that his mandate expires then. However, in the backdrop to all of this, you've got an investigation and audit going on into the French Football Federation because of some of those nasty sexual harassment accusations that we discussed a few months ago on the show. Now, with all that in mind, Noel Le Graet goes on the radio on Sunday, speaks on RMC Sport, was basically asked about sort of what Didier Deschamps staying on as France coach means for Zinedine Zidane. And instead of just sort of giving a respectful explanation saying, maybe he'll be the next one in line, something like that, and maybe he goes back to club management, it's some very, very weird, twisty, answers where he basically comes across massively disrespectful to arguably the greatest or most legendary French player, certainly in modern times. I mean, obviously Kylian Mbappe on his way to sort of emulating some of that. But I think as far as, footballing personalities go in France, nobody comes bigger than Zinedine Zidane. And the reaction throughout France, throughout the professional world has been incendiary. Like you said, Real Madrid, sticking the boot in this morning, coming out saying that, Noel Le Graet is, hugely disrespectful, basically unprofessional. It's not comments befitting somebody in the kind of position that he's in. And it's not only him. Le Graet has an interview as part of the audit process coming up this week. And one of the people involved in it is the sports minister in France. And she even came out publicly and hammered Le Graet for his comments. So you've got that going on. Probably the most important person to react to all of this was Mbappe himself, because he came out and basically what he's saying here is that Zinedine Zidane, is French football. He is France. He's one of the most popular personalities in the country. And what Mbappe is saying in Zidane's defense here is that you cannot speak about him with such a lack of respect. Now, Le Graet has been forced to come out and publicly apologize. I would say it was a very minimalist apology. There's been some suggestions as well that he might try and call Zidane later. Seems like the damage is done. But in any case, we know that Le Graet will be, exiting the FFF at some point in the future. Whether or not that gets expedited now because of the audit into the FFF, we don't know yet. But it is an absolute mess. When you've got former players, and I'm not just talking about players that have retired recently, like Franck Ribéry, you've got guys going back to Yuri Djorkaeff coming out and saying that, as a president, you cannot be coming out and saying this. And it's right. And I think, unfortunately as well, what it also creates is this sort of debate where, Deschamps perhaps maybe gets muddled in a little bit too much with Le Graet. I mean, okay, we can certainly question why they have such a close relationship, but I don't think that we can necessarily say that, Deschamps didn't deserve to extend his stay with France. I'd question the length of it, especially because you don't know how France are going to perform in 2024. But it's all by the by. When you look at some of the quotes, the nature of them from Le Graet, it's really chilling to think that he is currently the most powerful person in the French Football Federation, and he's talking like that about somebody who quite easily could have been needed as a replacement for Deschamps had things not gone according to plan in Qatar.
JJ, I was gobsmacked by this news, and so was my small dog Reggie. You could have heard him yapping it away when he got the news of this debacle in French football. But Thinking about football as a whole in the country, Deschamps gets this contract renewal until 2026. What does this mean for Zinedine Zidane, and how is the French public reacting to the news of his extension?
The French public is split. I think there are some people who understand why the decision was made. I should also add as well, there has been part of a report in the wake of that extension suggesting that Le Graet actually forced it through. It was him and him alone acting sort of on behalf of the FFF, which makes it a bit more contentious. But my personal opinion is that, Didier Deschamps is not undeserving of a bit of an extended period in charge of France for what he did during the tournament. But again, I would question the duration. And I think that's where most of the French public kind of fall. They're not necessarily anti-Deschamps because of this, but France is undeniably very, very pro, very protective, very positive about everything that Zinedine Zidane has done throughout his career and his aspirations to become coach of Les Bleus at some point in the future. And to sort of see him denigrated in the way that Le Graet did so, in basically, almost sort of laughing at the idea that Zidane would go and manage Brazil, was hugely shocking and disrespectful. And this is just the latest, as I explained earlier, in a series of very shocking allegations against Le Graet. The fact that he's still in his position now is actually quite staggering. And I think that is where the majority of the anger, that's been stirred up within the French footballing world. I mean, it's not even just the French footballing world, French people. This is the kind of stuff that makes headline news. So to see the president of the national teams and the federation coming out and saying this kind of stuff about one of the undisputed golden boys, one of the most unanimous, figures in the country in terms of uniting people and positivity, it has really shocked a number of people. And I think this is something that is not just going to rumble on for the next couple of hours, next couple of days. This is something that could go on the next couple of weeks. I mean, the verdict for that audit of the FFF is due sort of mid-February. And there is a big feeling that Le Graet might not even last until then.
A couple of comments coming in right now. Real great comment coming in from Andy SVT here. He says, whip out the checkbook and keep him for the whole show. I think he's talking about Fabrizio, but unfortunately, Jonathan Johnson's incredibly expensive, so we had to let Fabrizio go so we could keep JJ on the show right now. Let's get back into it because I love this discussion. We're talking about French football right now and obviously the unrest that's happening with the French Football Federation and their president and his unsavory comments about Zinedine Zidane potentially taking over the French job. I think Deschamps personally, JJ, deserves to have the choice if he wants to stay on himself. I'm okay with him staying on for 2 years. I think if he does a good job over those 2 years, because if you look at the talent that he has, and he didn't have all of that talent for that last World Cup, if you look at the roster they have, in my opinion, they're probably the best, most stacked roster in all of Europe and potentially the world. I would have loved to have seen a full-strength France against this Argentina side. I think they would have beaten Argentina, although maybe Messi would have had something to say about that. But I think Deschamps is thoroughly deserving of getting another contract for 2 years. The 4 years is the question. However, he has done so well. He's got them to another World Cup final and obviously won at the previous World Cup. So it's hard to say, hey, you know what, we're going to move on from this when it's still working for him. What I want to ask you about is the comments from Kylian Mbappe. Kylian Mbappe comes out towards the French president in defense of obviously Zinedine Zidane, obviously a hero, an icon in French football. How much power does Mbappe have when it comes to comments like that? Does that potentially put the president at risk when you see the players are stepping up and standing up for Zidane and also saying, hey, little man, president, sit down and shut your mouth?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is certainly, an example of Mbappe flexing his muscles, but flexing his muscles in a good way, because I think him coming out and sort of taking the lead in terms of firing back at Le Graet has probably encouraged a lot of others, to do the same. I think you can assume that, a lot of the current players are probably in the same boat as Mbappe as well, probably staggered, at the idea that Le Graet would, dismiss Zidane in this sort of manner. And I think as well, let's not forget that, Mbappe has grown in power massively, not just at club level, but also in national team level. You had that dispute over the players' image rights a few months back. Mbappe doing this is a sign that he certainly doesn't feel, that Le Graet has sort of a leg to stand on anymore in terms of asserting any kind of authority, trying to, suspend him from the national team. What he's done here, speaking out against him for disrespect, certainly, disrespect now that Le Graet has had to come down publicly. It's not at all in the same sort of category as, Karim Benzema in the past, where Le Graet was able to sort of force him out of the French national team for more than 5 years. I don't think Mbappe is worried at all. I think he's probably counting the days until there's a breath of fresh air at the French Football Federation. There's a new president, a new regime in charge, and the possibility to change things for the better in the future. Because unfortunately, Le Graet is a relic of decades gone by, and has sort of contributed in many ways towards a bit of a stagnation in an administrative sense that surrounds the French national team. Obviously, we can't dispute the amount of talent that's being produced. So I think for Mbappe to basically take center stage, with this kind of resistance towards Le Graet, will have maximize the chances possibly of something being done, and his leadership being further destabilized. And to be honest, it's a self-inflicted wound as well by Le Graet. I mean, you have to pick your battles, especially when you're in such a vulnerable position as he was before he made those comments. So to come out and say that is basically suicidal, especially for somebody who occupies so many sort of different political positions as well.